It starts as a dull ache. Then it slowly grows into a deep, throbbing, blinding pain that takes over your entire skull. A toothache. Now imagine having it with no dentist, no painkillers, and no real way to fix it. Just endless agony, day and night, for weeks on end. This was the reality for almost everyone in history. And a bad tooth was not just painful, it could genuinely kill you. So how on earth did people survive a toothache before dentists? The answer is a wild mix of clever medicine, brutal surgery, and truly desperate magic. First, you have to understand just how serious this really was. A rotten tooth is an open door for infection, and back then, that infection could spread from your jaw, into your blood, or even into your brain, and quietly kill you. For most of history, dental infections were a genuine and common cause of death. Even as late as the 1600s, teeth were listed as one of the leading causes of death in the whole city of London. This was not just a bit of discomfort. A single bad tooth was potentially a death sentence. So what on earth did people think was causing all of this pain? Well, for nearly 7,000 years, from ancient Babylon right up until the 1700s, humanity had one confident answer: the toothworm. People genuinely believed that a tiny worm lived inside the aching tooth, burrowing through it and wriggling around, and that this was what caused the terrible pain. And to cure it, you had to lure the worm out. So they would heat up seeds and breathe the smoke over the tooth, patiently waiting for the little monster to fall out and die. But people were actually tackling teeth far earlier and far more cleverly than you would ever guess. Astonishingly, archaeologists have found human teeth that were carefully drilled out with a sharp flint tool nearly 9,000 years ago, while the patient was wide awake. In Slovenia, they found a 6,500-year-old tooth that had been neatly filled with beeswax. The ancient Egyptians and the Etruscans even wired loose teeth together with gold and built simple little bridges. Dentistry of a sort is shockingly ancient. But when a tooth was truly, deeply rotten, there was really only one reliable cure, and it was a brutal one. Rip it out. There was no gentle drilling and filling for the ordinary person. If the tooth was the source of the agony, then the tooth simply had to go. Torn straight out of the jaw, wide awake, with absolutely no numbing of any kind. It was easily one of the most feared and most painful experiences a person could ever face in their life. And who exactly did you go to for this? Usually it was not a doctor. For most of history, pulling teeth was the job of the local barber, who also cut hair and did small bits of surgery, or sometimes even the village blacksmith, who at least had the strong hands and the tools for it. At fairs and markets, traveling tooth pullers would set up their stalls and yank teeth out in public. Some of them even hired musicians to play loudly nearby, partly as a show and partly to drown out the screaming of their patients. And the tools that they used are the stuff of pure nightmares. There was the dental pelican, a hooked iron device named after a bird's beak, which gripped the tooth and levered it out sideways, very often taking chunks of gum and bone along with it. Later came the tooth key, which clamped onto the tooth and was then twisted, and it snapped teeth clean in half about as often as it removed them properly. Getting a tooth pulled could easily leave you far worse off than the original toothache ever did. So how did people actually cope with all of that pain? Well, they did have some genuinely effective remedies. The very best was clove oil. Cloves contain a natural anesthetic, and pressing an oil-soaked cloth against a bad tooth really does numb it. A clever little trick that dentists still use to this day. They also chewed on numbing herbs, drank plenty of strong alcohol, and in many places used opium, or willow bark, the natural source of aspirin, to try and dull that endless, grinding ache. And when medicine finally failed them, people turned to sheer desperation and to magic. They wore charms and protective amulets. They pressed the tooth of a dead man against their own aching jaw, in the firm belief that it would transfer the pain away. They pressed live frogs to their cheeks, and millions of people prayed to Saint Apollonia, the patron saint of toothache, a woman whose own teeth had been ripped out as torture, and who became the go-to protector for absolutely anyone in dental agony. Of course, the very best cure was to avoid the whole problem in the first place, and here ancient people were often better at it than we are. They cleaned their teeth with frayed chewing sticks, like the miswak, which naturally cleans the teeth and fights bacteria. They scrubbed with powders made from crushed shells, herbs, charcoal, and salt. And crucially, without our modern flood of sugar, cavities were actually far rarer. Many ancient people had remarkably healthy teeth, right up until one particular thing wore them down. Because there was one enemy that they simply could not escape. Their food was gritty. Grinding grain between stones left tiny bits of sand and stone in the flour, and so every single loaf of bread slowly sanded down their teeth like sandpaper. Over a whole lifetime, this wore their teeth completely flat, exposed the sensitive nerve deep inside, and led to agonizing abscesses. So even a person who never once ate anything sweet could still easily end up in absolute dental hell. And what on earth did you do once the teeth were finally gone? You got yourself some false ones. People carved dentures out of bone and ivory, and they wired in teeth pulled from animals, or even from other humans. In fact, after big battles, scavengers would go and pull all the healthy teeth from the dead soldiers and then sell them. After the Battle of Waterloo, so many were harvested this way that dentures made from them were nicknamed Waterloo teeth. The bright smile of a rich person may once have belonged to a fallen soldier. For thousands and thousands of years, this was simply how life was. Then in the 1700s, a French surgeon named Pierre Fauchard finally began treating dentistry as a real science, carefully describing cavities, fillings, and even braces, and earning himself the title of the father of modern dentistry. But the single greatest gift of all arrived in the 1840s with the coming of anesthesia. For the very first time in all of human history, you could actually have a tooth fixed or pulled and feel absolutely nothing at all. So how did people survive a toothache before dentists? With clove oil and desperate prayers, with barbers and blacksmiths, with brutal iron tools and a stubbornly high tolerance for pain. And, far too often, they simply did not survive it at all. For thousands of years, one single bad tooth could mean weeks of pure torture or even death. So the next time you are sitting nervously in a dentist's chair, quietly dreading that tiny little needle, just remember this. You are living through the single greatest era of painless teeth in all of human history. Like this video if it made you grateful for your dentist,